Welcome everybody to Just Blazor Programming. Today we're going to be discussing event handlers. That's what events was in the thumbnail. It's event handlers, but I couldn't fit it all in. Anyways, before we get started on event handlers, I want to discuss one little thing about how this tutorial is supposed to work. You do not need to go into the last video to understand this tutorial. However, we will be borrowing some concepts from there. In case you need a refresher, go to that video right here. And if not, then we can continue on. So let's do that. Event handling. Event handling is something that every single front-end framework needs. You need a way in order to interpret user interactions with your user interface, whatever it is. Angular, React, Blazor, they all do the same thing, and they have their different implementations of doing it. So in this case, how does Blazor work? Well, the key component when it comes to event handlers is this specific expression. This expression is on DOM event equals to the delegate. Now this will make more sense as we go on, but this is basically what you need to know in order to invoke an event handler in Blazor. This will be invoked inside of the HTML, whatever it is that you're gonna attribute it to. And that's where our project is gonna be focused on. I will show you how this is all supposed to work in different ways so that you have a better understanding on how event handlers work, and you will see that there are actually many ways. There are not many ways, but there are a few different ways of implementing these handlers, and it's very flexible, and it's also pretty simple as well. So don't worry. All you need to do is get your Blazor project. If you don't have an intro project ready to go, here's another video for you. Bang. And if not, then just start it up because you do not need any other video to come to this one. So, hey everybody. I forgot to explain one last thing, and that is that Blazor supports a number of events. And on this table that you're going to see right now, these are the events that I think are most popular when you are creating a web application. So as you can see on the table, I'm just going to go over it really quickly. These are the keywords that Blazor has in order to facilitate the event handling. So we'll just go over the really quickly. Focus, you have on focus there. You have your input, on change, on input. We had that in the last video, but don't worry, you're gonna see it again this one. Keyboard, these are just the keyboard presses: on key down, key up, and key press. And mouse, in case you want to detect the mouse for whatever reason, maybe making a Blazor game or something, which you can do. Now, these are just a small scope of what Blazor actually can give you. There's a big table that Microsoft supports. I'll have that in the description below if you just want reminder, if you need more for whatever it is that your project's going to be in the future. Either way, we're not going to need all of these. In fact, I'm just going to go over a few of them in the project itself, because once you understand how one of them works, you'll understand how all of them work, and it's really not that difficult. So now let's actually get into the project, boys. All right, boys, if this looks familiar to you, this is from the last project, but we won't be needing anything from there. As I said before, everything in this tutorial is going to be modular, so you could just come in here if you just want to look at a specific topic, or you can just go from the beginning to end. I know a lot of you like doing that, but I want to give you the flexibility of doing, whatever. So in this case, we don't care about the index. We're not going to do anything with that. We don't care about the space model here. And what we do care about is this thing here. Most of the work is going to be done right here in fetch data. So fetch data, this is from the intro project. So in case you don't know, we're going to run it. I'll run it real quick. The fetch data is basically just a table. So this comes with your intro project, and it just has a bunch of, ready to use data. So we don't have to go through it. And this is a tutorial basically on events, so we don't have to go into anything in depth. There's not gonna be any databases, nothing crazy in this one. This is just giving you examples of how to work with Blazor for event handlers. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna make this table a little bit better. We're gonna add some extra stuff to it so that we can work with it, and it will give us more information. It will allow us to change it, and that's how event handlers work. You have an input and then it does something. That's what an event handler is. So in this case, what I want you to do is up here above the table, we're gonna have an H3. So just write in this header date is and something else. Leave that for now. We're not gonna come back to it. We'll come back to it in a bit. And down here, we'll make a string property. Date hovering equals that. So take that string property and put it up here with the h3. Right here. The h3 we just did. So whoop. Now leave that alone for now. We're not gonna need it. That's just to set up for later. Obviously, I'm gonna show you some hovering logic, but one step at a time. In your code block, I want you to, we're gonna write the delegate side of this. So if you don't remember what I just said in the video, the way you're gonna write these events are gonna be on DOM event on DOM equals the delegate. And all the delegate is just the function you're calling to, and the on whatever event is the, on mouse click, on this, on that, on input. That's all that is. That's all you gotta know. And you're gonna put these inside these HTML blocks. So just in case. And here, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna make the date show up here whenever we hover over it. And we're gonna increase the temperature by having two buttons, one to increase the temperature, one to decrease the temperature. So this will show you how we can actually do events and pass in variables into those events so that we could change them as we will. The only other thing we will do is have an input that uses the binding of an event, aka the on change or on input binding. This is another event, but is done a little differently. It's from the data binding side, but it is an event call. It's just done differently. But we will see now. So in this case, I want you to go to the summary. We'll start from the summary then. So we're gonna go here in the summary with outside of the. So yeah, we're gonna have to do a little bit of changes here. This will not look very nice. So we're gonna do some divs inside of it. So just do something like I'm doing now. Put the TDs, vertically here. And we're gonna make a div class here, then one within that, then we're gonna make another one. So we're just gonna separate two different pieces of HTML together, because we're gonna have the summary in the top part, and then we're gonna have the input to change the summary right at the bottom within the column. So in order to do that, you need an input element here. And now we need a type. The type's gonna be of text. Oopsie. The type's gonna be of text. And then we're gonna put the line value, this is from before, from the other video, is equal to, and we're gonna copy the @forecast here, put it there. So that will bind the value to it. And now we're going to actually add the event. This is the first version of an event call. And this is a very specific one. So in this case, we're binding this value to a change event. In this case, it's going to be on input. So what we want to do here is that when we change the text, we're going to change what we see up here. Now this will happen individually for each column, which I thought was pretty cool, because normally if you're working with C#, you would have to get like a third-party kind of thing or build a bunch of JS code up. But in this case, you don't have to do much. You just have to do this and you're pretty much good to go. And you can already manipulate different pieces of the column without going through all the IDs and stuff. In case you don't understand what that is, don't worry. This is just something for you .NET people out there who have worked with this and felt the frustration. Now, in that case, now that we have the input there, we're going to try it out. I don't believe we need anything else for this. In order to view this example, we'll just do this, each one of these parts, and show it. So you go to fetch data, you see, so we have our input down here, and we have the actual variable, the property. So we're going to change this a little bit. You can see on input, we test it out. Oops. Test input and whatever. So this is basically data binding, pure data binding. There's nothing really crazy about it, but you know that it works with an event. So now we will work with, true events, I guess. In this case, we're going to be adding another column that we're going to put our buttons in. So in order for these tables to work, you have to match the amount of columns with the amount of columns that are going to appear down here. So the header column and the non-header columns, we're going to call this increase, decrease, temp. So now we're going to be doing another column that's going to be called increase, decrease. Sorry if I'm going over this again. I just had a gnarly mistake on my end, so I had to restart it again. But in this case, we're going to be doing another column. So we're just going to add it here and call it E. In this column, we're going to be adding our buttons. So our buttons are going to be just button. And we're going to add another button in this as well. You don't have to have them like this. And I'm going to separate them with a break HTML element here. And within this button, we're going to be called... Oh, actually, no. Here, if I did this. If I had them in a line, it'd be a lot easier. This is going to be our increase button. This is going to be our button. And this button is going to have a class as well. Class of increase. And here we're going to add the actual event handler. So our event handler is going to be the OnClick. These are buttons after all. So they're supposed to be clicked on. So in this case, we don't have our function ready to go. It's not here, but it's okay. You could write it preemptively or not. It doesn't matter. However, let's go write this here, and we're going to write this down here. Class equals decrease on click. So I'm going to show you how to write the event handler. You need to first write the actual event. So in this case, we're going to write an E. Doesn't matter what letter it is, but that's what that's going to represent. Equal sign, more than sign. And then here's where you write the actual delegate. The delegate, aka, is the function. So we're going to call our function increase temperature. Now, don't worry. I know this doesn't exist yet. We're going to get to it now. And when we do that, we're going to pass in the forecast element, which is this object up here. We're looping through a list of these forecast objects, so we're going to add them in. We're going to pass that one in along with a boolean called true. That means that we want to increase the temperature. I'm going to copy that, put that here, and in this second case, we're going to put it to false. So what I'm going to show you is that you can pass in... Oh, my bad. I forgot about this part here. You put an ampersand. Oh, you have to put the @ sign on both of them on the side here. So what I'm gonna do is add these here, front, and then to the end. You gotta add the double quotes here as well. So that's now the only issue we have is actually having our. The only issue we have here is actually having our increased temperature function get created. So we're just going to create it down here. We're going to create a private void increase temperature. And now we want the weather forecast object. I don't know if you can see this, but we have access to in the data inside the data file, inside the data folder, a weather forecast class. That's what we're going to call it. So we're just going to call it the forecast object, and we're going to call boolean increase. So now we have parameters that are being passed by the HTML up here. And this is going to be very simple. We're just going to have an if and an else. So you can write the shorthand of this if you want. I just like writing the curly brackets out. That's just my style. Increase. So the reason why we wanted to pass this in is because we needed access to a certain property. In this case, the property of temperature C. So don't worry about temperature F. Temperature F is a read-only property within this class that is affected by temperature C. So anytime you make a change to the C, F will change as well. So you don't have to change F. In fact, you can't change it because it's read-only. So in this case, we're just gonna do plus equals 1. So when we increase the temperature, we increase it by 1 degree Celsius. And then if we're not doing it, aka we're decreasing it, we're gonna do minus equals 1. So we're gonna decrease it by 1 degree Celsius. Well, that should be it. We have our OnClick ready to go. We have our DOM, DOM element and the delegate here. And we're gonna see how this all works. So what we should be seeing is that there's gonna be another column in there with buttons, and then the buttons will actually change the temperature C value of that row. Data. You can see our buttons here, and this is temperature 12. So let's see if my coding skills are as good as I think they are. Ooh, there we go. So now it went from 12 to 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, you get the picture. So yeah, just to make sure this still works. Perfect. So yeah, so as I said before, if you increase it and you decrease it, going down to 8, this will also increase or decrease accordingly because it is a read-only value based on this value here. So that's why that's doing that. So you basically have the gist of what an event is, an event handler does, how to invoke it. This is the most common way. But we're gonna do something else now. We're gonna actually add the mouse over event. And the reason why I want to do that is because the mouse over event is not something that web applications use a lot, except maybe if you're doing like a hover tip or something. But in case you want to do something special, like make a game that uses your mouse to follow stuff, then you can use this particular event to help you. That's going to be a very useful thing for you to know. And then you saw that there was on that table like a bunch of other stuff. We're not going to go through it. In fact, the mouse event is probably going to be the last thing that I'm going to add into this project, and then we're done, because we're going to do it in a slightly different way. I'm going to write it slightly differently. So in order for this mouse event, I'm actually going to write the function first in this case. So we're going to do another private void. I'm going to call this date mouse hover. So what we want to do is hover over the date, and then as we hover over the date, we're going to show it up here in this string variable, which is why I told you to write that in the beginning. Now it's all going to come together. And this is the other way of writing an event. And the reason why you would want this is because there are some things in the event that you might want. So every single, like in that table, every single one has like a class associated with them. This is the mouse event args class. We're going to call this M, and then we're going to call it string date. So we're just passing in the date, and we're going to get the actual value from the mouse event itself. And the reason why we want that is because we want to know the position of the mouse. And that is one of the properties within this event, that is in this class, that the event can bring you. So we're going to add the date, and then we're going to add something like this. Just follow what I'm doing. We're going to slash, we're going to call it mouse coordinates. Space plus, we grab the m dot client, m dot client x plus another string with a space in it so we can see it better. And then there's going to be a client y. So what this will do is it will pass in the date that you're hovering over and then give you the mouse coordinates. But that's not all you could do. You could actually add another You can add more than one event handler within a single HTML property. So in this case, we want to change it when we leave the HTML. So we're making another void called date mouse leave, and all it's going to do is that when it detects that we've left the actual whatever we're detecting, we're going to reset it back to empty. So in case you don't know what I'm doing, we're going to hover over the table. We're going to change this to something, to whatever the date's going to be and whatever the actual coordinates are. And then once we leave, it will reset it to empty. In order to do that, we need to actually add it in here. So within this TD, you're going to add two event values at mouse over, to be the actual mouse over, equal to, and you add your double quotes at m is equal to date mouse hover. That is our void. That is our, that's our function here. That's our delegate. And this mouse hover is gonna bring in that m that we have here, and then the actual property of the forecast object for at forecast dot. There's an easy way to get it. Yeah, we're just gonna add this in there. At forecast dot date dot toString blah blah blah. We're just gonna add that in. So now you have that in there. Now we're gonna add another one at mouse leave, or mouse we're gonna add mouse out, I believe. Yeah, there it is. And this one will be the one that once we leave the date, we will see the string go back to being an empty string. So in this case, it's just mouse date, mouse leave, and then we don't pass anything in there. So now you can share event handlers within one element if you want. I don't think you have to do this too much. This is just an easy peasy way of just showing you that you can do it. There are better ways of doing it. I think doing the passing parameter way is probably better. But in this case, it's just for the example. So we're going to see if this works. What do we have? Ooh, boom. There it is. If I leave, it goes back to nothing. If I go back, what if I switch it? Switch it again. So this, as you can see, changes, it captures the mouse coordinates because that's what the mouse event args class does. And it also displays my date because that's what I told it to do. And that is basically it for event handling. You could go through the entire list on Microsoft if you want. I'm going to just bring this here. These are just the ones that I feel are the most important. You're probably, if you're a web app developer, you're going to be sticking to the OnInput, possibly the OnFocus, and the OnClick. And if you want to make something more complex, then you have a bunch of other options you can use, including the mouse over ones that if you wanted to track, I don't know, a sprite on screen, you make a game out of that. Maybe you want to do something crazy, do something special for your portfolio. You can try different things. But these are just the ones that I feel are the best. And this is the easiest implementation of this process. So we have yet to go into more complex aspects of Blazor, but as you can see, it's pretty flexible, and I'm very impressed with how it handles tables. You can make a makeshift table be very dynamic for you. You can make it more editable, accessible in the UI for whoever, without importing a third-party program, which is very nice. And that's the end of these event handlers. Event handlers are pretty simple. It just took a bit of time to get this up and running, only because there is a lot more code in here than the last time. So just to go over one more time, you can have multiple events in one HTML block. You can have this bind value event is also an event handler situation. And the normal way you would do this is by passing in whatever the event is Now, these letters don't matter. It's just because I like being consistent. You don't have to use an M. You can call it whatever you want. And then pass in the delegate, aka the function, and you can pass in variables within it. So it's very flexible and very easy to use. And that's really it. Please like and subscribe to me for the next video. If you enjoyed it so much, leave comments, subscribe, blah, 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 all that good stuff. And happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully this gets out on Friday. Peace out.